Well, hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the first Effed Up News of 2022. I hope you all made it through your New Year's swimmingly with as little a hangover as possible. I will admit I got tricked into doing tequila shots on New Year's. Was not my best all-time decision-making process. Apparently, I sent emails to people I really shouldn't have sent emails to. I don't remember any of this. But they were nice emails. At least they were like wishing them well on the new year. They were like, I had some sense, but I hope none of you sent ill-considered text messages or emails after doing tequila shots on New Year's. That's all I'm gonna say. But welcome to the first Effed Up News of the year. Guys, Effed Up News is a little stream that I do on Sunday at 5 p.m. where I kind of talk about some of the stuff that I find more screwed up in the news, of which there is a plentiful array of things that we could choose from. But, you know, maybe some of the spicier stories, maybe some of the things that I have a little bit more of an opinion on, I save them till Sunday at 5 p.m. and we kind of rehash them live on the YouTubes or the Odysseys or the Rockfins, or even if you're watching on Facebook, I'm on multiple different platforms. But guys, as you know, if you appreciate the work that I do, the very best way to support me and to keep me independent is by becoming a supporter in my locals community. Now, you all can join my locals community for free at kb.locals.com. But if you want to keep me doing this and, you know, being able to do silly things like pay my mortgage and, you know, do other stuff, you're going to want to become a supporter in locals. I very literally could not be doing what I'm doing today without the help of my locals community. They are the best. Not only do they keep me in business, but I also really do think that I have the best community in all of locals. We are not the biggest community in locals, but I really do think we're the best community. I really do think that we help each other, we support each other, we keep each other sane. We do lots of things together. When you are a supporter in my locals community, you're going to unlock all sorts of exclusive perks. You're going to be able to comment on all the posts. You're going to be able to join in for the Zoom community calls that we do twice a week. We actually have a Zoom call tomorrow at 7 p.m. You're going to be able to join in our craftin' bitches, our book clubs, all the other stuff we're going to be doing. And you get that for the bargain price of $5 a month, less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. You can also do it for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift, which of course I really do appreciate. And guys, when you come into my locals, I can't wait to welcome you into the community. If you are a locals community member and you have never been to one of our community Zooms before, I mean, I have some of my locals in the chat right now. They can just tell you it is the absolute best. Another thing I want to talk about before we get started is, guys, I am actually going to be amping up my streaming schedule in 2022. So just as an FYI, before we get into the news, I'm going to start this new thing where I'm going to go live at 5 p.m. every day, except for Saturdays because I need a day off, or on days like Thursday when I have a tattoo appointment scheduled. We'll talk about that. But I am going to be going live at 5 p.m. on my YouTube channel and Odyssey and Rockfin every day, just to talk about the news, to talk about other things that's going on in the world. I kind of tested this a little bit last week. I'm going to start making it more consistent. So remember, live at 5 p.m. Eastern time every day of the week, and we're going to make a little show out of it, and we're going to see what we can do. Nat D says CNN's New Year's Eve was awful. Miley Cyrus's wardrobe malfunction was more entertaining. Oh, I didn't hear about this at all. I was doing karaoke with the Libertarians on New Year's, so I did not hear about that at all. And no, I'm not going to Google Miley Cyrus's wardrobe malfunction. Nope, I'm good. George Andre Vosso Nunez says, don't drink and drive, don't text and drive, don't drink and call, don't drink and email. You know what? Don't do anything, just keep drinking. You know, like I said, I don't have any recollection of sending emails, but apparently I'm told that I did. If I accidentally emailed you or texted you on New Year's while I was drunk on tequila shots, I'm sorry. I am sorry. It happens. Okay, it happens. It wasn't my fault. The shots weren't my idea. All right, guys, let's get into it. Oh, by the way, I want to mention, I do actually have a live stream that I'm going to be doing in my locals right after the stream today. So on Effed Up News Sundays, we follow up happy hour, not happy hour. Oh my God, what day is this? We follow up Effed Up News with Effed Up News After Party, which is a locals exclusive live stream on just like, I'm going to talk about New Year's kind of like advice for kicking off your new year well. I actually had a lot of my locals contribute advice. So we're going to be talking about different ideas for people for things people can do in the new year to make sure that it's a little bit happier than the last one. Sour Kiwi says, saw there is karaoke on Saturday nights. No. I'm not a karaoke person. Don't mistake. Just because I did karaoke once, don't think that means I'm going to do karaoke again. Okay? I like singing along with karaoke in the crowd. I don't like actually performing karaoke. So just like, let's all settle down a little bit. Let's all settle down. All right, guys, let's jump right into the news. Let's see. The biggest news of the day is that Marjorie Taylor Greene got permanently banned on Twitter. Let's just acknowledge that this was just a matter of time, really. We all knew this was going to happen. They've suspended her before. Now, apparently, the ban is permanent. This from The Hill. Twitter said on Sunday it permanently suspended the personal account of Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene over the social media platform's COVID-19 misinformation policy. Well, let's be honest. They were looking for an excuse to get her anyway, and they got her. Now, listen, here's the thing. I'm a free speech absolutist. I do not like tech censorship. I do not like this at all. However, I also think that we need to live in reality for a second. And reality is that right now, the tech companies can do whatever the flip they want. The tech companies are more powerful than the government. The tech companies banned a sitting president of the United States. The tech companies have now banned a member of Congress, though they didn't ban her congressional account, so technically she does still have that, but they did ban a member of Congress. The tech companies are more powerful than the government, and the government is doing absolutely nothing to stop them. So while I am not in favor of deplatforming, except in maybe extremely egregious cases that, you know, we can have that conversation when those extremely egregious cases come up. In cases like this, I'm not in favor of it. I do think that we need to be realistic that most people are probably going to get banned. Most people are probably going to get banned. I absolutely believe I'm going to get banned on Twitter at some point. And because I believe that I'm going to get banned on Twitter, I really do try not to say shit that they could use to ban me. It's why I don't really talk about the vaccine stuff that much. It's why I don't talk about it on YouTube. We're going to talk about that in conjunction with a different video today. I don't talk about the pandemic on YouTube because it's not that I don't care about these issues, but I also feel like we all need to be realistic of what we're dealing with. And I think that some people, conservatives especially, they're playing dumb with this whole thing. They know that the tech platforms are actively out to get them. They know that they will twist anything they say or do to get them banned. And then they go ahead and they do it anyway. And then they use it as a way to complain about it. But do conservatives actually ever do anything about tech censorship? No. Some of you may have saw that I did a poll on Twitter last week that got almost 7,000 votes about banning porn. And I did a video about it on the channel. And one of the things that came up in that poll is that conservatives absolutely do want to censor and ban things. 67% of the people who answered that poll said that they would rather ban porn than protect the First Amendment. So conservatives absolutely do want to censor and ban things. And I absolutely believe that the reason that when back in the day, because remember, let's rewind back to the first 2 years of the Trump presidency, conservatives had the White House and they had both houses of Congress. They had the House and the Senate. Did they do anything about tech censorship? No. It's not that they couldn't, it's that they didn't want to. I firmly believe that if conservatives get into power, they will do absolutely nothing about tech censorship. Because I think that while they may not like who is currently controlling the censorship, I think that they actually do want to be able to utilize it at some point in the future. So my big spiel with this is I don't think the tech censorship is going to change anytime in the near future. And if you're going to be on these tech platforms, then you need to play smart. Don't be stupid. There are certain things you can't talk about. There are certain things you can't say. There are certain things you have to be a little bit more careful of. I can't tell you how many times I've written a tweet and I'm like, could this tweet get me banned? And then I'm like, is it worth it? I don't know. So I don't like the reality, but this is the reality that we are dealing with nonetheless. Lisa Bell says, I hope you had some salt and a lime wedge to go with your tequila shots. I did. There was salt and there was lime juice that was sprayed out of the green plastic lime thing that you get at the supermarket. So yes, that made it go down, but the shots were very large. It wasn't my fault. Happy New Year, keep being you. Thank you, Lisa Bell. I appreciate that. Let's see. Let's get back to this article. The social network said in a statement that it took action after repeated violations of the policy. We permanently suspended the account you referenced, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for repeated violations of our COVID-19 misinformation policy. We've been clear that, per our strike system for this policy, we will permanently suspend counts for repeated violations of the policy. As of Sunday morning, Greene's congressional account was still up. In response, Marjorie, in typical Marjorie fashion, posted a statement on Telegram. Marjorie is also on Getter, which, oh gosh, still have this super chat on the screen. Sorry, Lisa Bell. Marjorie is also on Getter. Just so you guys know, I am on Getter as well. People have been asking. Let me get my Getter account up so you can see. On Getter, I'm just Carlyn, Karlyn. They even gave me this little red V thing. I don't really know why. They didn't port over my followers or anything, which would have been kind of nice. But if you're on Getter, you can follow me on there at Carlyn. I am trying to use it more. I actually think that Getter is pretty great. If I'm honest, I think it's not the worst platform in the world. It works well. It's easy. Of all of the platforms that conservatives are built, it is by far the most superior in terms of this type of thing. Obviously, Locals is my primary jam, but in terms of like a Twitter alternative, I think Getter is better than Gab. I think it's infinitely better than Parler. So I'm a fan. But Marjorie posted this statement on her Telegram account. She posted a truncated version of it on Getter. She says, today, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene released the following statement from her after her personal Twitter account was banned. Maxine Waters can go to the streets and threaten violence on Twitter. Kamala and Elon can bail out Black Lives Matter terrorists on Twitter. CNN and the rest of the Democrat propaganda machine can spread Russia collusion lies. And just yesterday, the chief spokesman for terrorist IRGC can tweet, Morning Soleimani. Well, I get suspended for tweeting Veer's statistics. So apparently she was actually just tweeting stuff from the CDC, which is a little bit ridiculous, but whatevs. Twitter is an enemy to America and can't handle the truth. I love it. I love Marjorie. I don't care what people say about her. I love Marjorie. I think she's great. Twitter is the enemy of America. You should put that on a t-shirt. That's fine. I'll show America we don't need them. And it's time to defeat our enemies. They can't successfully complete a communist revolution when people tell the truth. Social media platforms can't stop the truth from being spread far and wide. Big tech can't stop the truth. Communist Democrats can't stop the truth. I stand with the truth and with the people. We shall overcome. You know what? If all conservatives, I don't agree with Marjorie on everything. I don't. But if all conservatives were as spitfiery as she is, man, it would be a completely different reality that we're dealing with. Brady is the GOAT says people who want to ban porn already watch it but can't admit it. Well, or they want to be watching it. I mean, the whole porn banning argument thing to me is just ridiculous. This has already been decided up by the Supreme Court on like 19 different flipping levels. Kimberly says, when you tear out a man's tongue, you're not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might say. George R.R. Martin, of course, from Game of Thrones. Thank you, Kimberly, for that. And thank you, Brady is the GOAT, for becoming a new member on my channel. I greatly appreciate that. Let's see. Let's get back over to here. Now, I did want to point out this. You know what? This was trending on the side. I guess it's gone away now, but this was seriously trending on the side for Twitter for me like all day. And it was basically like why did Marjorie Taylor Greene get banned on Twitter? And it was like the New York Times reports Twitter on Sunday says they suspended the personal account of Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene because she had her 5th strike. And that's all it said. I was like, this is crack reporting from the New York Times that was trending on Twitter. So I'm sure the New York Times had no heads up at all. This was posted like immediately upon Marjorie's account getting banned. So I'm sure Twitter didn't give any heads up to the New York Times at all about what they were doing. Definitely didn't happen. Let's see. Patrice reminds everyone to mount that like button. Guys, we don't smash the like button on this channel. We mount the like button. So please make sure to do so if you haven't already or if you appreciate what I'm trying to do. All right. Let's move on. What do I have up next? Okay, let's go to this. This other thing I'm going to talk about in my locals later, in my locals exclusive stream. So, back about maybe almost a month ago, December 11th, 2021, I tweeted the following. I'm calling it now. On January 6th, the corporate media will hold a full day of mourning as though this is the most tragic event in our country ever. Remember how they were the year after 9/11? It will rival that for sure, if not surpass it. 9/11, of course, merited it. So tweeted that about a month ago. And now what do we see popping up? Nancy Pelosi announces plans to commemorate January 6th anniversary at the U.S. Capitol. Dude, we've got January 6th coming up on Thursday. Is everyone ready for January 6th? I will be sitting in the tattoo chair getting a tattoo on January 6th. So hopefully I'm going to avoid at least the afternoon of it. But, I mean, are you guys ready for the biggest drama that has ever been in the... You know what we should do? After I come back from getting tattooed, and I'm going to show you guys a sneak peek. I have the stencil already tattooed on my arm. I'm getting a big ass sun right on my shoulder, and he's going to add more detail to it this time. It's going to be beautiful. But after I get home, here's what we should do. Do you guys want to do it like if I get home in time, do you want to do a Joy Reid reaction stream on January 6th? Wouldn't that be fun? Should we do Joy Reid reaction stream on January 6th? Watch Joy Reid live? Oh my God. That might have to happen. If I don't get it home in time, maybe we'll do Chris Hayes. Maybe we'll just move it a little later. I should be able to get home in time for Joy Reid reaction stream on January 6th, though. That'd be pretty rad. Because I'm not going to be able to do a 5 p.m. stream on January 6th. I'll be getting tattooed, but we can maybe move it a little later. Let's think about that. But let's see what Nancy is planning for January 6th. These events are intended as an observance of reflection, remembrance, and recommitment in spirit of unity, patriotism, and prayerfulness. Starting at noon on January 6th, there will be a prayer and a moment of silence on the House floor, followed by a historic perspective conversation between historians Doris Kearns Goodwin and John Meacham to establish and preserve the narrative of January 6th. Dude, first of all, John Meacham is like MSNBC's in-house historian. So I'm sure that's not going to be partisan at all. But how great is it and how telling that literally they are saying that the purpose of the Democratic Day of Remembrance of January 6th, the entire purpose of this is to establish and preserve the narrative of January 6th. These people operate with such hubris. That they are literally telling you that their entire day of remembrance plans are specifically to preserve the narrative. Just think about that for a second. How ballsy, how in control of every major institution in our society do you have to be to say out loud on CNN that your specific goal is to preserve the narrative? Lawmakers will then share their accounts of the attack in a session presided over by Colorado Democratic Representative Jason Crow, followed by a prayer vigil with members of the House and Senate on the steps of the Capitol. If any Republicans participate in this at all, they should be immediately expelled from the GOP. I'm sorry. If any Republicans participate in this remembrance and effing prayer vigil, they have shown their cards. The insurrection, which began as members of Congress worked to certify the results of the 2020 presidential election, commanded the nation's attention as violent scenes of rioters attacking officers and destroying parts of the Capitol were broadcast live across the country. You know, I remember very distinctly when I called my husband while I was at the Capitol on January 6th, standing outside, not in the building, on the lawn. And I said to him, I was like, hey, you're probably seeing some stuff on TV. I just want you to know that I'm fine. And he replied back, he was like, yeah, it kind of looks like they're just walking between the velvet ropes in the Capitol. That was what was airing on TV when my husband was looking at it. Was people going in the Capitol and walking in. It was the most orderly riot in history. They stayed between the velvet ropes inside the Capitol. How Antifa of them. Lawmakers will then share their accounts. Oh, I already read that. Hang on. More than 700 people have been charged. Blah, 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 blah. One of the darkest days. January 6th was one of the darkest days in our democracy, said White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. It was a day when our nation's capital was under attack, and I think there's no question you'll see us commemorate that day. Oh, yeah, honey. They're going to be commemorating it. They are. They are. But you know what? Do they even have to? Because according to the New York Times, every day is January 6th now. This is from the editorial board. The editorial board of the New York Times on January 1st, the first editorial of the year from the paper of record, the Gray Lady. Every day is January 6th now. Let's read. 1 year after the smoke and broken glass, the mock gallows, the very real bloodshed of that awful day. I'm sorry, chat, can you remind me, in speaking in terms of the very real bloodshed of that day, who was the only person killed that day and who killed her? Just go ahead and chat that in. It is tempting to look back and imagine that we can, in fact, simply look back. To imagine that what happened on January 6, 2021, a deadly riot at the seat of American government, incited by a defeated president amid a last-ditch effort to thwart the transfer of power to his successor, was horrifying. But that it is in the past, and that we, as a nation, have moved on. Yep, you guys are, oh, look at that. Ashley Babbitt. Who killed Ashley Babbitt? Member of the Capitol Police. This is an understandable impulse. After 4 years of chaos, cruelty, and incompetence, culminating in a pandemic and the once unthinkable trauma of January 6th, most Americans were desperate for some peace and quiet. So let's talk about that pandemic. Because I heard, you guys remember when Joe Biden was like, I have a plan to end the pandemic during the campaign in 2020? Does everyone remember that? If you elect me, I have a plan. Trump does not have a plan. I have a plan. I heard a rumor that last week there was a single day in which almost 500,000 people were diagnosed with COVID. We are now living in a reality. We're going to talk more about the impact of COVID a little later on in the show. We are now living in a reality where there is a massive mental health crisis. We are living in a reality in which schools are going to shut down again, in which businesses are going virtual again, in which people are mandating vaccines and masks for they're mandating them because the CDC says to mandate them, and that's really all I can say right about that, because the CDC is our God, and they have mandated that masks and vaccine passports and all that stuff reference the CDC for all your vaccine-related questions, because that's what I have to say on YouTube. Brett Wells says they want to keep January 6th alive to hold it against Trump if he runs again. Yeah, that's exactly right. Let's keep going. On the surface, we achieved that. Our political lives seem more or less normal these days as the president pardons turkeys and Congress quarrels over spending bills. But peel back a layer and things are far from normal. January 6th is not in the past, it is every day. It is regular citizens who threaten elected officials and other public servants who ask, when can we use our guns, and who vow to murder politicians who dare to vote their conscience. It is Republican lawmakers scrambling to make it harder for people to vote and easier to subvert their will if they do. It is Donald Trump who continues to stoke the flames of conflict with his rampant lies and limitless resentment, and those whose twisted version of reality still dominates one of the nation's two major political parties. You're right, Brent. They are desperately afraid of Trump. They really are. Let me ask in the chat. Let's do a poll in the chat. Sorry, Odyssey and Rockfin and Facebook. This is just on YouTube. Do you think Donald Trump should run again in 2024? Yes, no. All right. Asking you guys in the chat on YouTube now, do you think Donald Trump should run for president in 2024? Let me know what you think. In short, the Republic faces an existential threat from a movement that is openly contemptuous of democracy and has shown that it is willing to use violence to achieve its end. No self-governing society can survive such threats by denying that it exists. Rather, survival depends on looking back and forward at the same time. Truly grappling with the threat ahead means taking full account of the terror of that day 1 year ago. Thanks largely to the dog work of bipartisan committees in the House of Representatives, this reckoning is underway. Bipartisan committees? Wasn't Liz Cheney kicked out of the GOP in Wyoming? Is Liz Cheney even really technically still allowed to call herself a Republican? Because the Republicans in Wyoming don't really seem to like her all that much. Bipartisan, my God. We know now that the violence and mayhem broadcast live around the world was only the most visible and visceral part of the effort to overturn the election. The effort extended all the way into the Oval Office where Mr. Trump and his allies plotted a constitutional self-coup. We know now that top Republican lawmakers and right-wing media figures privately understood how dangerous the riot was and pleaded with Mr. Trump to call a halt to it, even as they publicly pretended otherwise. We know now that those who may have critical information about the planning and execution of the attack are refusing to cooperate with Congress, even if that means being charged with criminal contempt. Listen, man, I've said this a million times. I was on the Capitol lawn that day. Trump sending a tweet wouldn't have done anything. Why? Because Twitter wasn't effing loading. There was no service. Very few people actually had service at the Capitol that day. So Trump could have sent all the tweets he wanted, weren't going to stop nothing because no one's phone was actually working. The tweets I sent from my phone that resulted in the FBI showing up in my door, the ones that I sent from the Capitol lawn before I even knew what was happening, they were stuck in like Twitter like loading zone for like I don't even know how long. They weren't sending. And then all of a sudden, everything came out at once. I looked at my feed later. I was like, this makes no sense with the time I actually send them. But it's because there was no effing service. So this idea that Trump could have ended everything by sending out a tweet was always stupid at best. For now, the committee's work continues. It has scheduled a series of public hearings in the new year to lay out these and other details, and it plans to release a full report of its findings before the midterm elections, after which, should Republicans regain control of the House as expected, the committee will undoubtedly be dissolved. You know what? I would actually love for the Republicans to reformulate a new committee with people who are actually interested in what the truth is. I would love for the Republicans to do that. The Democrats can whine and cry about it all they want. The Republicans, if they have any balls, will dissolve the current committee and will reconstitute a new committee that's actually interested in finding out what the truth is. This is where looking forward comes in. Over the past year, Republican lawmakers in 41 states have been trying to advance the goals of the January 6th rioters, not by breaking laws, but by making them. Oh no, Republicans are trying to make laws? Oh no, not that, anything but that. Hundreds of bills have been proposed and nearly 36 laws have been passed that empower state legislators to sabotage their own elections and overturn the will of the voters, according to a running tally by a nonpartisan consortium of pro-democracy organizations. Some bills will change the rules to make it easier for lawmakers to reject the votes of their citizens if they don't like the outcomes. Others replace the professional election officials with partisan actors who have a vested interest in seeing their preferred candidate win. Yet more attempt to criminalize human errors by elected officials, in some cases, even threatening prison. Many of these laws are being passed in critical battleground states. Do you know what this op-ed is like? Does everyone remember the Time magazine article? We read the article live on the channel. That article was a confession. That article was one of the most blatant confessions I've ever read in my life. This editorial is so reminiscent of that Time magazine article that basically confessed, like, here are all the ways in which the Democratic Party fortified the election. This op-ed is a reminder of that. It's basically saying, here are all the things we need to do. Look, the Republicans are moving. The Republicans are trying to follow the rules and do things the legal way. We better make sure we're fortifying things on the back end for the 2022 midterms. That's basically what this article is. Many of these laws are being proposed and passed in critical battleground states like Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. In the aftermath of the 2020 election, the Trump campaign targeted voting results in these states, suing for recounts or trying to intimidate officials into finding missing votes. The effort failed thanks primarily to the professionalism and integrity of election officials. Many of those officials have since been stripped of their power or pushed out of office and replaced by people who openly say the last election was fraudulent. Thus, the Capitol riot continues in state houses across the country in a bloodless, legalized form that no police officer can arrest and no prosecutor can try in court. What did I say? Look at that sentence. Look at that sentence. This New York Times op-ed is calling for a fortification of the election. That's what it is. They're saying, thus the Capitol riot continues in state houses around the country in a bloodless, legalized form. That's what their fortification was in 2020. It wasn't that there was some sort of kraken, which I always said. Their fortification was a bloodless, legalized form. They're telling you what they did because they're trying to say, watch out, the Republicans are trying to stop us from doing it again. The New York Times is telling us exactly what they're going to do. Dragonwater says, can we screen projection? Yes, we can. Yes, we absolutely can. This isn't the first time state legislatures have tried to wrest control of electoral votes from their own people, nor is it the first time that the dangers of such a ploy have been pointed out. In 1891, President Benjamin Harrison warned Congress of the risk that such a trick could determine the outcome of a presidential election. The Constitution guarantees to all Americans a Republican form of government, Harrison said. These essential features of such a government are the right of the people to choose their own officers, blah, 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 blah. A healthy, functioning political party faces its electoral losses by assessing what went wrong and redoubling its efforts to appeal to more voters next time. The Republican Party, like authoritarian movements the world over, has shown itself recently to be incapable of doing this. Party leaders' rhetoric suggests they see it as the only legitimate governing power, and thus portrays anyone else's victory as the result of fraud. Hence the foundational falsehood that spurred the January 6th attack that Joe Biden didn't win the election. Well, this is a little ironic. A healthy, functioning political party faces its electoral losses by assessing what went wrong and redoubling efforts to appeal to more voters next time. After they lost in Virginia, the Democratic Party announced that they were going to double down on exactly the same tactics they used that lost them in Virginia. So I'm going to go ahead and say, nope, this is projection. It's projection again. That's all this is. The thing that's most concerning, Adam Kinzinger, of course, the New York Times quoted Adam Kinzinger, who cried in the January 6th committee hearing. The thing that's most concerning is that it has endured in the face of all evidence, says Representative Adam Kinzinger, one of the vanishingly few Republicans in Congress who remains committed to the empirical reality and representative democracy. And I've gotten to wonder if there is actually any evidence that would ever change certain people's minds. As a reminder, Adam Kinzinger is not going to be coming back to Congress because they redistricted his ass out. So we don't have to deal with him for too very much longer. Just a quick update on the poll, folks. It looks like only about 55% of you think Trump should run again in 2024. I have mixed feelings about it myself. On one hand, I think it would be hilarious. On the other hand, I think DeSantis is probably the better bet. I don't know, man. I feel like I don't really have skin in this game because I'm not going to vote for a Republican either way. But like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the show. Either way, I kind of hope Trump does run just for the pure entertainment value. But I would also understand if people didn't. I understand why people don't think it's a good idea. So I'm 50-50 with the rest of you. The answer for now appears to be no. Polling finds that the overwhelming majority of Republicans believe that President Biden was not legitimately elected, and about 1/3 approve of using violence to achieve political goals. I think that that's probably an exaggeration of whatever that poll says, but okay. Put those two numbers together and you have a recipe for extreme danger. David Skidmore says, like they are not the people who screamed racism and fascism for 4 years, they see themselves as the only legitimate ruling party. That's exactly correct. It's projection. When they say Republicans see themselves as the only legitimate ruling party, it's because they themselves see themselves as the only legitimate ruling party. And then Dragon Waters says, I think the establishment will be ready for Trump this time. He no longer has surprise on his side. I mean, maybe. I certainly think compared to Biden, and we're going to be talking about Biden's great successes in a second here. I certainly think compared to Biden, Trump is the better of the two options. And I think the American people would be more inclined to see that. And I'm going to show you guys some evidence in a little bit that would back that up. Political violence is not an inevitable outcome. Republican leaders could help by being honest with their voters and combating the extremists in their midst. Throughout American history, party leaders from Abraham Lincoln to Margaret Chase Smith to John McCain have stood up for the Union and democracy first, to their everlasting credit. Democrats aren't helpless either. They hold unified power in Washington for the last time in what might be a long time. Yet they have so far failed to confront the urgency of the moment, unwilling or unable to take action to protect elections from subversion and sabotage. Oh, here we go with the Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin blaming. Blame Senator Joe Manchin or Senator Kyrsten Sinema. But the only thing that matters, in the end, is whether you get it done. For that reason, Mr. Biden and other leading Democrats should make use of what remaining power they have to end the filibuster for voting rights legislation, if nothing else. Dude, the media is desperate for this voting rights legislation. They are desperate. Thank God for Joe Manchin. We should all pray for Joe Manchin's health and his continued presence, because I cannot imagine the amount of pressure that Joe Manchin must be under. Although I will say this, I did hear something. I heard that there were, what was this latest thing that Joe Manchin killed? The Build Back Better thing. I heard that there were multiple Democratic senators that did not like the Build Back Better bill, but they basically used Joe Manchin as their cover because they had to vote for it in order to be able to get reelected. They were like, Joe, you don't need to vote for it. You can block it for all of us. I did definitely hear that. Whatever happens in Washington, In the months and years to come, Americans of all stripes who value their self-government must mobilize at every level, not simply once every 4 years, but today and tomorrow and the next day to win elections and help protect the basic functions of democracy. If people who believe in conspiracy theories can win, oh no, so can those who live in a reality-based world. Above all, we should stop underestimating the threat faced by the country, or the threat facing the country. Countless times over the past 6 years, up to and including the events of January 6th, Mr. Trump and his allies openly projected their intent to do something outrageous or illegal or destructive. Every time, the common response was that they weren't serious or that they would never succeed. How many times will we have to be proved wrong before we take it seriously? The sooner we do, the sooner we might hope to salvage a democracy that is in great danger. Thank you, New York Times editorial board, for another article that just projects your hubris on the entire situation. So, guys, hunker down. We've got a week of January 6th memorials ahead of us. I'm sure it will be multiple days. But I want to talk about masks. Not necessarily masks directly, because I'm not allowed to talk about masks on YouTube, because anytime I try to talk about masks on YouTube, I get a strike. Like this time back in June, when YouTube gave me a strike for talking about a peer-reviewed psychology article from the New England Journal of Medicine that was talking about the psychological impacts of masks, and YouTube was telling me as a psychologist I was not allowed to talk about a peer-reviewed psychology article about the psychological impacts of that. But I do want to just give myself a little bit of credit. I do. Because I have actually been screaming about masks and the psychological impact of wearing masks since this started. Since March of 2020. I was like, this is not going to be good. Now, you can go back and look at my videos. I was like, this is not going to be good. And I sent this Twitter thread out almost a year ago after a full year of screaming about it. And I said on this Twitter thread, the masks are going to have this is from March 8th, 2021. Masks are going to have a number of detrimental effects. They reduce individual expression by covering the thing you literally use to express yourself. This is bad because of how much we express ourselves is directly related to how much we value and love ourselves. Long term, it's going to create a lot of emotional instability, anxiety, and depression. It's also going to enhance victimhood complex to kids growing up, and 8 years old is the key year. Without seeing the faces of other people will struggle with so many things. They're going to struggle with picking up and understanding nonverbal cues, how to read human emotion, building human relationships, especially when everything is virtual, positive social interactions, etc. We won't truly know how much this has fucked us for 5 to 10 years. That was my prediction about a year ago. It's same as the prediction I had a year before that in March of 2020 when this whole thing started. And although I will remind everyone that you should always and forever refer to the CDC for all your mask-related guidance, don't listen to me. I'm just a psychologist talking about psychological impact. You should always refer to the CDC for all of this. I do want to just say that, we're starting to have some trouble with mental health. They're starting to talk about the mental health impacts of the pandemic. We're going to read about that, but we're going to take this super chat from Patrice first. Mask freaks me out because I recognize people much more by the bottom half of their face. If I had to work all day with one, I'd lose my marbles. Patrice, I'm right there with you. Right there with you. Let's read this article. This showed up in the Hartford Courant this past week. Stories of the year. In the midst of pandemic, why isn't that showing the full title? Hang on. Why isn't that showing the full title? Oh, there we go. In the midst of the pandemic, many children were in a mental health crisis. You don't say. You don't say. Demand for pediatric behavioral health care surged dramatically this year as emergency rooms overflowed with children seeking urgent services and child psychiatrists were deluged with requests for help. Beginning in 2020 and continuing through 2021, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a profoundly destabilizing effect on many children. As they navigated remote learning, reduced social contact, and in some cases, illness and death within their families. For some children, returning to in person learning this past fall also brought a host of new challenges and anxieties. Providers across the state reported seeing not only more children with behavioral health needs, but also conditions that were more severe. The Hartford Courant selected children's mental health as one of the top 10 stories for 2021. Current editors selected the top stories of the year based on reader interest and significance. So it looks as though I am not the only person that is concerned about the mental health impacts of the pandemic. You don't say. Children needed more services. They're sicker, said Dr. Linda Mays, the chief of child psychiatry at Yale New Haven Children's Hospital. They're staying in the health system longer and in our treatment system, which creates a backlog. In early October, Connecticut Children's Medical Center were overwhelmed with the number of children arriving in its emergency department seeking behavioral health care. Many families in crisis had to wait hours before obtaining a bed for their child. And in some cases, it was days before they obtained psychiatric care. We're having a medical and surgical surge and a behavioral health surge at the same time, says the president and chief executive of the hospital. We can handle a medical surgical surge, but we're at a breaking point with behavioral health. The State Department of Public Health responded to the crisis at Children's by beginning to divert some older patients to other hospitals. And yes, this is affecting adults too. We're going to talk about adults in a second because it is equally sad there. But longer-term solutions remain complex, and carving out a path of the crisis will be one of the state lawmakers' top priorities during the upcoming legislative session. As demand for pediatric care surges, behavioral health care providers say they've been hindered by staff shortages as employees leave the field due to burnout or more lucrative careers, or because they got fired. Providers and advocates have called on lawmakers to increase funding for community mental health services, address insurance reimbursement rates, blah, blah, blah. Additionally, many have championed stronger partnerships between schools and mobile crisis teams to divert. Oh, nothing could go wrong with this plan. I'm going to read this again. Many have championed stronger partnerships between schools and mobile crisis teams to divert children away from the emergency departments and deeper investments in preventative efforts. What they're saying is they're going to rely on the schools to deliver mental health services. You know how we've talked about social emotional learning on this channel? This article is literally saying they're going to try to partner with the schools to provide mental health services. Nothing could go wrong with that plan at all. Nothing could go wrong in a world in which teachers are practicing psychology without a license or proper training. Not a week goes by without hearing from a family with a 12-year-old child with just morbid depression released from the hospital back home with a waiting list. This happens all the time. Waiting list, waiting list, waiting list. People cannot leave the hospital. We wouldn't treat cardiac care that way, but we treat the mental health crisis that way, and we can fix that. No, they can't. This is only going to get worse, folks. I promise you. I know this isn't like usually the lighthearted news that we look at Effed Up News, but I promise you, this mental health crisis is going to get so much worse before it gets better. Marty Smith fan says, Manchin and Sinema are upholding the filibuster, so the voting bill needs 60. Thank God for them. The Build Back Better was put in reconciliation that needs 52. Thank you for that. But it's not just children that are suffering. It's also adults. I want to give a shout out to my locals community member, Arn, who showed me this article. Now, guys, I've started a new thing in locals. If you join my locals at kb.locals.com, I've started this new thing where I start previewing some of the articles for Effed Up News. I pin it to the top of the community. And then if you have articles you want me to cover for Effed Up News, you can reply in with the article and it may show up on the show. This was actually an article that, shout out to Arn. He sent me this article as a result of on the preview post for Effed Up News this week. And I thought it was really sad. This was originally in the New York Times. A nation on hold wants to speak with the manager. We're just going to read a little bit of this. Nerves at the grocery store were already frayed in the way of these things as the pandemic slouches towards its third year when the customer arrived. He wanted, I don't know how to pronounce that, a type of blue cheese. He had been cooped up for a long time. He scoured the dairy area, nothing. He flagged down an employee who also did not see the cheese. He demanded that she hunt in the back and look it up on the store computer. No luck. And then he lost it. Just another out-of-control member of the great chorus of American customer outrage 2021 style. Have you ever seen a man in his 60s have a full temper tantrum because he didn't have the expensive imported cheese he wants, said the employee, Anna, who described the mood in the store in Minneapolis as hangry, confused, and fearful. You're looking at someone and thinking, I don't think this is about the cheese. No. It's not about the cheese at all. It's not about the cheese. The way this works is people can only take so much. They can only take so much. If a guy is having a temper tantrum in a supermarket, I promise you it has nothing to do with you not having the product that he wants. It has to do with the fact that he's been forced to be vaccinated by his job, that his kid has to go to therapy for how effed up the kid is, that his other kid is also not learning in school, that now they're learning the schools are closing, and so they might have to find childcare for their kids if they can even go back to work. And they keeps piling and piling and piling and piling and piling until something small happens and that's how anger works. The issue that they say they're mad about is rarely the issue that they're mad about. But the mental health crisis in this country is not just impacting children. It is impacting everyone. It is a strange, uncertain moment, especially with Omicron tearing through the country. Things feel broken. The pandemic feels like a Mobius strip of bad news. Companies keep postponing back to the office dates. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention keeps changing the rules. Political discord has calcified into political hatred. And when people have to meet each other in transactional settings, in stores, on airplanes, over the phone, on customer service calls, they're, in the words of Luna, devolving into children. Perhaps you felt it yourself. Your emotions at war with your better nature. A surge of anger when you entered your local pharmacy, suffering from COVID-y symptoms, only to find out that they're out of thermometers, never mind antigen tests. A burst of annoyance at the elaborate rules around vaccine cards and IDs of restaurants. Rules you agree with. Well, not all of us actually agree with those rules, because you have to wait outside and it is cold and you left your wallet in the car. Jose, thank you for the super chat, says, working in the entertainment TV finance industry, in meetings, the phrase, allow your employees to work from home or someone else will, is being said. Well, that doesn't surprise me at all, because there's a real staffing shortage across the country right now because people are just opting out of work. A feeling of nearly homicidal rage at the credit card company representative who has just informed you that, having failed to correctly answer the security questions, you have been locked out of your account. Note to self, adopting a tone of haughty sarcasm is not a good way to solve the problem. People are just, I hate to say it because there are a lot of really nice people, but when they're mean, they're a heck of a lot meaner, said Sue Miller, who works in the nonprofit trade union in Madison, Wisconsin. It's like, instead of saying this really inconvenienced me, they say, what the hell is wrong with you? It's a different scale of mean. Listen, man, I have absolutely blown up at people that I should not have blown up at. I had to go into Whole Foods last week to get my Christmas dinner because I don't really cook. and they had instituted the mask policy again, and I was fucking livid. I was livid. I have not worn a mask in New Hampshire in months except to go to the airport. That's it. I was effing livid, and I said some things I shouldn't have said. And it was like almost for me, and I'll admit this because, I like I'm not a perfect person and I try to admit failures when I can because I think our failures help us learn, but I don't know what the hell came over me. It was like a slew of rage and like I try to take care of myself. I try to be mindful. I try to meditate. Had some stuff going on lately that's really pissed me off. I'm sure that hasn't helped any. But I think many of us can identify with something like this where it's just like it's a small thing and it's not actually that person's fault, but it's one too many small things that we as a society have inflicted upon each other. Nat D says Whole Foods is awful. They deserve raising criticism. Well, thank you for allowing me that, Nat D. Thank you for allowing me that. Sin says, in my senior community, we refuse to isolate. Those who do are either becoming frail or nasty. We are losing our humanity. We're devolving. I think people are meaner than ever before. And I don't know, man. I'm kind of starting to run out of patience for people who are just inflicting this stuff on each other. And I know that's probably exactly the opposite of what should be done here, but I also think that everyone has a responsibility to take care of themselves. And I think it's one thing if you can kind of stop yourself and say, "Oh man, like I went too far. Sorry, my bad." That's one thing. But if you're just going around angry every single day and blaming everyone else for how you feel instead of taking responsibility for yourself, it's crap like this is going to happen. One of the things we're going to be doing in my locals community in 2022 is we're really going to be focusing in on mindset and perspective and trying to live a better life. Because we can't control a lot of the stuff that's going on in the country right now. We can't. But what we can control is ourselves and how we treat ourselves and the attitudes that we have. And these things are always controllable, guys. They really are. Things suck right now. And I frankly think that things are going to get a whole heck of a lot worse before they get better. And everyone has a responsibility to take care of themselves. And when you take care of yourself, you're going to be able to show up better in the world. You're going to be putting yourself in a better position to fight back. There are simple things you can do. We're going to talk about them in locals. We're actually going to be talking about a couple of them in locals literally right after this call or this stream, whatever this is. Because I have a locals exclusive live stream that's going to be going live in about 20 minutes to half an hour, depending on when I actually finish up this stream. And we're going to talk about some of those things. So if you want to be in on that, make sure you join my locals and you can join us for that. Guys, this is Effed Up News, a little stream I do every single Sunday. I will be streaming live every single day of the week at 5 o'clock, except for Saturdays on my channel in 2022. So please make sure you check back. We got a lot of stuff to go over still. We got a couple more. Please make sure to mount that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you have not already. Now, I know I keep saying that things are getting worse, but I did just want to pause. I wanted to pause for a white pill moment. Okay? White pill moment. Actually, hang on. We'll take the super chat first from George Andre Veloso Nunez. Says, when I get in these rants, I always add in the middle, I know it's not your fault. It's your bosses or COOF policies. Is New York Times calling everyone Karens? Yeah, New York Times is basically calling everyone Karens. The irony is not lost, right? Well, let's have a little white pill moment. So this is a thread or a post or something on Reddit that kind of made the rounds. And I just want to read this so everyone can have some perspective that even though we are going through a whole bunch of nonsense right now, things can maybe get better. Okay? We're going to do a little white pill. A little, it's like, what is that thing when you go out to a palate cleanser? A palate cleanser of sorts. I voted for Biden. It was supposed to be the right choice for the country. Now what? I'm done with the two-party system. And you should be too. The Republican Party failed us. The Democrat Party failed us. I'm done putting my faith in these politicians who fill their pockets with lobbyist money and pass omnibus bills that are 1% to our benefit, 9% to our demise, and 90% to fill the pockets of the politicians and companies backing the bill. F this shit. Biden was BS. Trump was BS. Obama was a facade war criminal. George Bush was an effing joke. Every president, as far back as at least Reagan, has been part of a big circle jerk. And now there are reports that the CDC reduced the COVID-19 quarantine from 10 days to just 5 after a complaint from the CEO of Delta. I trusted the science. I trusted the government. I trusted Biden. And this is what I got. The government isn't trusting science anymore. The government is following corporations. That's the literal definition of fascism. So now I feel like this whole pandemic is an effing sham and a money-moving scheme that big corporations are using to crush small businesses. Mandates that hurt small businesses that we all have to follow because it's the science until big corporations can just change them. Why not? F this shit, man. I did try to rein in the swearing a little bit. But I wanted to show you guys this because even with all of the nonsense, even with all of the New York Times op-eds and the festivity of January 6th nonsense that we're going to have to endure this week, you have to know that their hubris will be their downfall. It really will. Their hubris, at the end of the day, will be their downfall. You know, I did an interview on Dave Janda's show earlier today. I'm on his show like once a month. And we are talking about the fact that one of the things that we have a responsibility to do is to just continue to show up and continue to express ourselves. Continue to talk about what's going on. Guys, the most powerful people in any social system are not the ones that have the majority. The most powerful people in any social system are the ones that are expressive. They're the ones that are showing up and talking unapologetically, sharing their points of view, sharing their values, doing it every single day. Our job right now is to not allow any of this to get to us. Many of us have been fighting back against the pandemic nonsense since it effing started. One of the biggest mistakes we made in this whole thing was agreeing to 15 days to slow the spread in the first place. We never, ever should have done it. And I know a lot of people are tired. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm frustrated. 2021 for me was a giant year of frustration. I am really hoping that the entire thing gets put behind me. But we have to keep showing up. We have to keep voicing our opinions. Because there are people like this that are waking up. There are people like this that are finally seeing that it's not all a conspiracy theory. This pandemic is not going to be over until people understand that the pandemic was a ruse for control. Now, I'm not saying COVID isn't real. COVID, of course, is real. I'm freaking vaccinated. I'm not actually against people getting vaccinated as long as they make the choice to do so. But what is fake and what is overplayed is the amount. This whole thing is an effing power grab. I'm sorry. This whole thing is a power grab. And from the very beginning of this pandemic, the Democrats were using it as a power grab to win an election. They used it as a power grab. It was never about the virus. And yes, the virus does exist, and you should reference the CDC for all your virus-related questions because the CDC is our god. The virus exists. It has actually killed people. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't a political party that used it as a power grab. And now a lot of people in the middle are going to be waking up. I think our hope lies in the centrists. It lies in the moderates. It lies the people who don't have specific allegiance to any tribe. That is where everything lies. And the more people that we can wake up, the better it's going to be. Which, of course, is why the media is going to do absolutely everything it can to convince us that everyone who is not a progressive woke leftist is an evil Republican conservative. We're not going to read this. I just thought this article was funny. This is in Politico. Republican eyes new front in education wars making school board races partisan. Well, of course, the Democrats are going to do this, and the corporate media is going to do this because they lost the election in Virginia because of the schools. They lost the election in Virginia because of critical race theory, and they all know it. So now they're like, how dare Republicans try to win elections? How dare they try to take over local offices? You know, Republicans are usually asleep at the wheel when it comes to this sort of stuff, and now they're actually getting involved, and God forbid they're running for school boards. Now, you guys know that I actually don't think school boards do a whole heck of a lot, because unless you live in Connecticut or Vermont, your school board has absolutely no say over the curriculum in your school. So I kind of think that this is a lot of wasted effort over nothing. But, you know, I also don't think the battleground should just be ceded. I just think it's funny that the Democrats, after 2 flipping years, 2 years of them weaponizing an actual emergency, are now like, how dare you run on issues to try to win elections, Republicans? How dare you spoil our little party? Jose says, I resent taking the shot for work. They created the virus and the shot. The elite oligarchy is playing medical experiments with us. So I just want to say, I just read the super chat, YouTube, okay? I don't believe that, I don't agree that, well, I do think that virus leaked out of a lab. I do. But I also believe in going to the CDC with all your questions about the virus, because I'm no one on the internet and I don't want to get a strike on my channel. I'll read your super chats, guys. I just don't give me a strike on my channel, okay? Please, come on. I'm already skirting the line based on previous strikes I've gotten. Yeah, Julie says, "Hail the CDC! Hail the CDC! The CDC are our gods." But that's not the only thing that the media is talking about. So we all know that now every day is January 6th. And the Hill has declared that, you know what? The Constitution just doesn't work for us anymore. The Constitution just isn't working. Let's read this op-ed in the Hill. The U.S. Constitution. I hate how these. I'm even looking at this in Brave, and I got all these ads. The U.S. Constitution is a sacred text of American government and civic life, but it's time to face facts. The document, written in 1787, isn't working. The signs are all around us. Just 38% of Americans in a recent Gallup poll expressed either a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in the presidency, down from 48% in 2001. Congress, never high in the public's estimation to begin with, fell from 26% to a mere 12%. Congress has a 12% approval rating. Holy cow. I'm really trying not to swear as much. I'm trying. The Supreme Court has also taken a hit, down from 50% to 36% in the same time period. One reason often cited for the failing Constitution are people who inhabit its carefully crafted institutions. In Congress, serious legislatures are scarce, as many members aim for viral recognition on social media. Freshman Madison Cawthorn freely admitted, I have built my staff around comms, not legislation. And he's hardly alone. Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, Jim Jordan, and Lauren Boebert represent a new breed of legislators who seek recognition and are largely uninterested in passing actual laws. Well, Democrats did actually just kick Marjorie Taylor Greene off of committees. So what do you expect her to do? What do you expect Marjorie to do with her time after you kicked her off committees? She's an elected representative. She's going to show up. How do you want her to spend her time? I mean, honestly, like if the Democrats actually cared about this, which of course they don't, But if the Democrats actually wanted to distract Marjorie Taylor Greene from Twitter or Getter or Telegram or whatever site she's going to use now, they just would have left her on committees. It's like busy work. But they didn't. Disappointing presidents have become the norm. George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump failed to bring the country together, with Trump leaving office amplifying spurious claims of election fraud. Today, many see the courts as arbiters of justice, but inhabited by what Justice Amy Coney Barrett unsuccessfully tried to refute as a bunch of partisan hacks. But the Constitution's failures go much deeper. The framers designed the presidency to execute laws, not make them. But the vagaries of constitutional legislation have given the president the power to make laws through executive order. The result is a roller coaster from one president to the next. Donald Trump loves signing executive orders, putting a Sharpie on 220 of them. Thus far, Joe Biden has signed 76 orders, with progressive Democrats urging even more. Okay, let's just we're going to play a game called Fun with Math. What is 76 executive orders per year times 4 for 4 years in a presidency? Joe Biden is on par to surpass Donald Trump's number of executive orders by a lot. Over 300, if he keeps going at this rate. Just saying. Presidents are not obligated to sign executive orders. It's a choice that they make. If Joe Biden doesn't want to legislate by executive order to the tune of 80 more executive orders than Donald Trump used in his 4 years, then he can make the choice not to. It's a choice. It's not a necessity. Meanwhile, Congress is failing to protect its congressional prerogatives. Instead of reserving it to itself the right to declare war, Congress has surrendered war-making to the president, something the framers arduously sought to avoid. When Trump egregiously ignored his oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution on January 6th and prescribe constitutional remedy of impeachment and conviction failed. Rather than asserting its constitutional right, Congress has surrendered them to extreme partisanship. In the House, congressional Republicans are willingly forfeiting Congress's subpoena power in the January 6 investigations, but seek to reassert them if they are rewarded with congressional control in 2023. In the Senate, the filibuster is no longer a rare instrument designed to halt legislation and foster debate. Instead, the 60-vote threshold has become the default mechanism to stop all legislation without a word. When George Washington supposedly was asked by Thomas Jefferson why the Senate was created, he responded, "Why did you just now pour your coffee into that saucer before drinking?" Jefferson answered, "To cool it." Washington responded, "Even so, we pour our legislation into the senatorial saucer to cool it." The Senate was designed to cool legislation, not to kill it. Well, if both sides were behaving like adults, this wouldn't be happening. I'm sorry. The problems that we have in this country are not a result of the founding document. The very idea that the problems are the result of the founding document is stupid. The problems are the result of the people. It's the result of the people. It's the result of the people who are elected to office who refuse to behave like adults. That's what it is. The reality is that if you want to get stuff done, you're going to have to negotiate with people who disagree with you. If you refuse to negotiate with people who disagree with you because you are afraid of the most extreme voices in whatever party you're in, then you're not going to be able to get anything done. Both sides are behaving badly. Both sides are behaving like mean girl teenagers, and that is why we are in the predicament that we are in, not because the founding documents need to be rewritten. As partisanship grips the nation, more turn to the Supreme Court to revoke actions that either party find offensive. During the past 20 years, the Supreme Court has waded into numerous political controversies, blah, blah, blah. However, the Supreme Court declared that its decision only applied to George W. Bush. Okay, we don't need to rehash the whole W thing. I just don't care that much. It won't be enough merely to reform the filibuster, add more justices to the Supreme Court, change presidents, or surrender presidential powers to Congress. A document written in 1787 is inadequate for the 21st century. The Electoral College is poised to create more misfires. Okay, they're good. They're attacking the Electoral College again. That happened after the election, if you all remember. With popular vote winners not becoming president, well, that's the whole effing point. As happened twice already this century. Territorial expansions has resulted in 16% of the U.S. population controlling half of the U.S. Senate seats. That's the entire effing point. That's the entire point. The Dakotas are but one example. When 2 states were admitted to the Union in 1888, Republicans deliberately split the territory in 2, thereby creating 4 new senators, not 2. Meanwhile, the strict constitutionalists of the Supreme Court resort to determining the original intent of the document written 234 years ago, rather than understanding that it was a beginning, not an ending point. If only there was literally a way to amend the Constitution in the Constitution. That does exist. They can amend the Constitution if they want. But in order to do that, they'd have to act like adults, which no one is inclined to do. Thomas Jefferson once remarked, "I hold that a little rebellion every now and then is a good thing, and is necessary in the political world as storms are in the physical. Let's face facts. The Constitution isn't working. It's time for a little rebellion." If a Republican said that, they'd get banned on Twitter. I'm just saying. George Andre Veloso Nunez says this founding document attacks is a prelude to making a new constitution conversation in a few years. Write it down. I'm calling it. I agree with you. I bet that's going to happen. Which is why I'm pretty excited to live in the free state of New Hampshire. Now, guys, we're going to wrap up this edition of Effed Up News with a little white pill from the Live Free or Die state. And I do try to end on something positive every single week because I think that we need more positivity. But I'm just going to brag a little bit because I love New Hampshire. I do. I'm so blessed to live here. I moved here when I was still a Democrat 10 years ago. 10 years. Almost 11 now. I moved here on May 14th, 2011. My husband was my mover. I fell in love with him when I watched him pick up a giant dresser filled with my clothes and carry it by himself. And I said, oh my God, a strong man like that would be glorious to have around. But I'm so blessed to live in New Hampshire. And the Free State Project put together this amazing Twitter thread to end the year. And I just want to share some of the accomplishments of the Free State Project in the past year. Mandatory Carry says, hashtag keep fighting. Thank you, Mandatory Carry. I appreciate that. Guys, if you don't know, the Free State Project is an initiative to get libertarians to move to New Hampshire. Because if we can have a high concentration of libertarians, guess what? We can do a lot of libertarian things. Now, some people think, well, New Hampshire has a completely blue Democrat or congressional delegation, which is true, technically. We have Chris Pappas, Maggie Hassan, and Jean Shaheen in Congress, and Annie Kuster, too. Forgot about Annie Kuster. And they're all Democrats. But what people don't talk about is the fact that Republicans and many free staters who are libertarians registered as Republicans actually control the state house in New Hampshire. And so even though the congressional delegation is off doing whatever the hell they're doing, we still have a lot of great things going on in New Hampshire. So let's take a look at this thread. I'm going to try to make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it on the screen a little bit better. Is that better? That's better. 2021 was arguably the greatest year in the Free State Project history. Want to enter 2022 with optimism for liberty? New Hampshire entered 2021 with more Liberty representatives than ever before. 69 of the Young Americans for Liberty 2020 wins were in New Hampshire. 74% of Rebuild New Hampshire candidates won. 91% of New Hampshire Liberty endorsed candidates won. 40 Free Staters were elected to the State House, including the House Majority Leader. In February 2021, there was a month of endorsements. Here's Eric Brakey talking to Dave Smith. Actual principled Ron Paul style Republicans have more influence in the traditional GOP establishment. Michael Malice also gave glowing review of the Free State Projects in February 2021. They're one step away from pocket nukes. In March 2021, we saw the battle for schools heating up. Corey DeAngelis called the proposal the most choice-friendly system in the country. The bill was watered down a little bit, but did pass, and the program is live. Most parents can now spend $5,000 per child however they like. Corey DeAngelis is also very, very, very excited about the bill that we currently have now. So this bill that they're talking about here, that made state money available for people to use for education freedom accounts. We have another bill this year that's about local defunding of the schools, if you want to take that money and use it however you see fit as a family. April 2021 saw the policy returns from so many Liberty legislators: massive tax cuts, interest and dividends tax gone, emergency powers reform, free state vaccination passport ban, and biggest of all, unlicensed lemonade stands. The governor would sign these in July. Spring of 2021 also saw Bloomberg cover Keith Ammon's efforts to ensure no libertarian will ever be asked who will build the roads. Keith Ammon is one of the most based state legislatures in all of the state. One of the best things about the Free State Project is Democrats in New Hampshire actually hate libertarians way more than they hate Republicans. So Democrats in New Hampshire attack the Free State Project literally all the time. It's hilarious. May 2021 was comparatively quiet, but did see the release of New Hampshire Liberty's legislator scores. 148 representatives scored as libertarian, even higher than the number endorsed, which shows how libertarians are able to pull people to their position. June 2021 had the greatest pork fest ever. 2,500 plus libertarians just having a fun time with people that share their values. Pork fest was amazing. Guys, I talk to the organizer of Pork Fest all the time. If you are planning on coming to Pork Fest, get your tickets now because they are going to sell out. Make sure you get your tickets. Make sure you get your accommodations. I will be there all week. I'm really looking forward to it. Pork Fest was my favorite thing that happened in 2021, and I cannot wait to be there with the Mises Caucus again. I'm going to be hanging out with them the entire time. And I hope you guys, as many possible, come to join us. We're going to have a nice little meetup at Pork Fest. June 2021 also saw a private leaked call come from Governor Chris Sununu expressing frustrations over how much power libertarians had obtained. June 21, Free Staters indirectly caused substantial change in the National Libertarian Party by refusing to apologize for being libertarian. This was the whole New Hampshire libertarian coup, which was pretty epic. I covered it on my channel, and there was coverage of it everywhere. It was amazing. More assault from Democrats. August 2021, an evolution in Free State metrics as the move to Massachusetts sign becomes a regular in the replies on Twitter and Facebook. This is amazing. This is amazing. So the Free State Project on Twitter has taken to addressing Democrat salt by telling them that Massachusetts will welcome them to move there. It's so good. August 2021, body cams on all state police officers. August 2021, coverage of the Crypto 6 in The Verge. Jeremy Kaufman was on Tim Pool's show about the Free State Project. This is like the only episode of Tim Pool I've watched all year. Jeremy was amazing. If you want to learn more about the Free State Project, definitely check out that episode. He was really, really great. September 21, John Oliver joins the progressive hate train against New Hampshire. Hard to overstate how helpful these people are in keeping the wrong people away from New Hampshire. September 2021, a constitutional amendment allowing New Hampshire to secede is introduced. I really do believe New Hampshire is going to secede at some point. Not right now. I don't think it's going to happen right now, but I do think it's going to happen at some point. There was actually a song written about the Free State Project that you can go and listen to in this thread. The song is amazing. It gets stuck in your head. It's crazy. October 2021, the greatest endorsement come from those who hate us. More Democrat salt around the Free State Project. The Free State Project just launched a new podcast that you can subscribe to on their YouTube channel. We've got Justin, we've got Carla, we got Jeremy, we got Bill live on Mondays. November 2021, government school attendance hits record lows. New Hampshire public school attendance is plummeting, down 22%, over 44,000 students from the all-time high. November 2021, a huge green energy program is cut, returning over $300 million to New Hampshire taxpayers. December 2021, Tim Pool talks about the Free State Project on Joe Rogan. More salt. As a result of the Free State movement, New Hampshire is the #1 for liberty, #1 economically, #1 highest density of libertarian members, and #1 for overall liberty. New Hampshire, contrary to popular belief, is more free than the state of Florida, who comes in at #2. So guys, that's my white pill moment. I love New Hampshire. I love living here. I know some of you are thinking about moving to New Hampshire. If you're thinking about moving to New Hampshire, I definitely recommend you come up for a visit, connect with the Free State Project. They will hook you up. It's going to be even better this year. We've got a lot of momentum. I'm so excited about it. And the libertarians here, best community in the world. It's positive. It's all over the state. They're welcoming. I just can't say enough good things. All right, that's all I have for this edition of Effed Up News. Now, as a reminder, I'm going to be going live in my locals community. Actually, let me get you guys a link real quick. Let me get you guys a link to my locals community because I'm going to be going live like directly after this in locals, and we're going to talk about how you can live your best life in 2022. Where is the link to the after party? Oh no. Okay, here it is. Found it. Okay. I'm going to get you guys a link if you want to come join me in locals. Now, you don't have to pay for this. You can sign up for free. That's cool. Let me put it in Odyssey. Let me put it in Rockfin. And we're going to be talking about how to have an amazing 2022 and some good advice for that. If you want to come and join me, that'd be great. If you want to become a supporter in locals, even better, you can become a supporter for $5 a month. You can become a supporter for $50 a year. You can make a one-time gift. All of that helps me to stay independent. And as a reminder, guys, I will be streaming at 5 p.m. tomorrow for Monday, my first real 5 p.m. stream of 2022. I will also be doing a locals community Zoom tomorrow at 7 p.m. So if you want to come and really experience locals community, you can get signed up as a supporter today. And what that means is that you are going to have access to our community Zoom tomorrow at 7 p.m. Come meet the members of the community. Come join in. Come chat with us. It's an open forum. You can talk about whatever you want. And really, again, my locals community is the greatest community on the internet. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, guys, that's all I have. Thank you for joining me. And if you are joining me in locals, I'm going to take like a 3-minute break and I'll be live very, very soon. All right, guys, that's all I have. We'll see you tomorrow.